I'm going to say hello to everybody. This is Reverend Jerry Hobby. We're coming to you live here on YouTube today. We normally come to you live on our Facebook page. Unfortunately, we're having challenges, technical challenges, but we would love to record this message from Larry's book study, and we're inviting you to tune in to us, visit us at Spiritual Enlightenment and Truth Focus Ministry. That is on our Facebook page, or you can visit us at our website, seatfm.org, and find out more about Larry's book consciousness webinars. This series is focused on, who is it focused on, Larry?
Well, it's a new thought.
No, what is the name of the book?
Oh, Neville Goddard's.
Neville Goddard. My
Right.
mind went blank, and I was just looking for support because we're having a few challenges. And he's doing the entire book series, and there is some practical wisdom in there. We always say there is value in spiritual practice, where you will get some really good stuff from him. So I'm going to start off as we normally do with an opening song and then an opening prayer. So we're going to start off with a song. This song is by Faith Rivera, and the name of the song is The Power of Now. So just give me a moment. Let me maneuver. We've had a lot of changes and shifts take place. So in a moment, I'll be ready to share with you that song, and then we'll go into prayer. Right. This is Faith Rivera, The Power of Now.
Power of now is always present, nowhere to be than where you are. The power of now flows oh so gracefully. The power of now is always perfect, nothing to be than who you are. The power of now flows oh so easily. Be willing to let go of everything you think you need to know. Oh, be strong enough to let go of everything you think you need to control. For everything goes away. Let everything wash away. The power of now.
So we're going.
The power of now is unfold so peacefully. Be willing to let go of everything you think you need to know. Oh, be strong enough to let go of everything you think you need to control. For everything goes away. Let everything wash away. The power of now. The power of now. The power of now. The power of now.
How beautiful. The power of now. And I'm just inviting you right now to just join me as we just move into the sacred space. And as we move into that sacred space this evening, I'm inviting you to simply breathe with me. Breathe and release and let go. Let go of everything it took to just get to this very moment. And as you're releasing and letting go of everything it took to get to this very moment, we take this moment and we honor the presence and honor the light. We are present in the now. And in this holy and sacred moment, we simply remember that there is only one life, one power, one presence. That life, that power, that presence is the infinite. And that infinite dwells within each and every one of us. And that each and every one of us is a catalyst for change, a catalyst for healing, a catalyst where the infinite fulfills itself. And as we acknowledge this power right now, we acknowledge that presence empowered within us and through us, ourselves used for good. And so I'm speaking my word this evening, knowing that that good transmits itself and fulfills itself in a sacred way for every single person that is viewing this, every single person that is hearing this, every single person that is exposed to this. And what I'm knowing is about our wonderful facilitator, our practitioner emeritus, Larry Hobby, is that he is self-emptied and he is spirit-filled. And that words of wisdom fall upon fertile soil. And what I'm acknowledging is a exponential growth within every single person. Something is inspired and awakened within each individual. And I know it supports their highest and greatest good, and it supports the highest and greatest good of all of humanity. So it is in this tone, in this sacred awareness, right here, right now, I simply give thanks for this awareness. I'm giving thanks for the good and all that is already gone before and has prepared the way. And it is from this place with gratitude that we all affirm, and so it is, and now it is.
So it
Amen,
is now.
amen, and
Amen.
ashe. So I just want to let our YouTube audience know that we offer this every Wednesday at 6:30. Normally we're on Facebook Live. Unfortunately, Facebook is having some technical challenges today. So we're coming to you through YouTube Live. And we just want to support this people growing in their awareness about and from the wisdom of one of our all of our wonderful book authors and support this thought. Larry mentioned New Thought. We want to support it. a new awareness, regardless of your walk of life, where you come from, to see life with fresh eyes. And when we see with fresh eyes, we get an opportunity to create a space for healing for ourselves as well as the world. So we say there's value in spiritual practice. And from that space, right here, right now, I'm going to turn this over to our wonderful practitioner emeritus, Larry Hobby, and he will begin to share.
Good evening, everybody. Top of the evening to you. I usually say top of the morning, but it's top of the evening. And we got a great chapter that we're going to be going through. It's chapter 6 is visionary fancy. It says the nature of visionary fancy or imagination is very little known, and the external nature and performance of its ever-existent images is considered as less permanent than the things of vegetative and generative nature. Yet the oak dies as well as the lettuce, but its eternal image and individuality never dies, but renews by its seed. Just so the imagination image returns by the seed of contemplative thought. The images of our imagination are the realities of which any physical manifestation is only the shadow. If we are faithful to vision, the image will create for itself the only physical manifestation of itself it has a right to make. We speak of the reality of a thing when we mean its material substance. That is exactly what an imaginist means by its unreality or shadow. Imagining is spiritual sensation. Enter into the feeling of your wish fulfilled through spiritual sensation and through your use of imaginal sight, sound, scent, and taste, and touch. You will give to your image the sensory vividness necessary to produce the images in the outer shadow of your world. Now, here's the story of one who was faithful to his vision. FB, being a true imagist, remembered what he had heard in his imagination. Thus he writes, a friend who knows my passionate fondness for opera tried to get Kirsten Flagstead complete recordings of Tristan and Isolde for me at Christmas. In over a dozen record stores, he was told the same thing. RCA Victor is not reissuing this recording, and there have been no copies available since June. And on December 27th, I determined to prove your principle again by getting the album I desired so intently. Lying down in my living room, I mentally walked into a record shop. I patronized and asked the one salesman whose face and voice I could recall, do you have Flagstad's complete Isolde? He replied, yes, I have. That ended the scene, and I repeated it until it was real to me. Late that afternoon, I went to the record shop to physically enact the scene. Not one detail supplied by the senses had encouraged me to believe I could walk out of that shop with those records. I had been told last September by the same salesman in the same shop, the same story my friend had received there before Christmas. Approaching the salesman I had seen in imagination that morning, I said, do you have Flagstad's complete Isolde? He replied, no, we haven't. Without saying anything audible to him, I said inwardly, that's not what I heard you say. As I turned to leave the shop, I noticed on the top shelf what I thought to be an advertisement of this set of records and remarked to the salesman, if you don't have the merchandise, you shouldn't advertise it. That's right, he replied. And as he reached up to take it down, discovered it to be a complete album with all 5 records. The scene wasn't played exactly as I had constructed it, but the result confirmed what my image scene replied. How can I thank you, FB? And after reading FB's letter, we must agree with Anthony Eaton that an assumption, though false, if persisted in, will harden it to fact. FB's fancy fusing with the sense feel of the record shop, enriched aspects of it, and made them his what he perceived. Our future is our imagining in its creative march. FB used his imagination for a conscious purpose, representing life as he desired it to be, and thereby affecting the life instead of merely reflecting it. So sure was he that his imaginal drama was the reality and the physical act but a shadow, and that when the salesman said, "No, we haven't," FB mentally said, "That's not what I heard you say." He not only remembered what he had heard, but he was still remembering it. Imagining the wish fulfilled is the seeking that finds, the asking that receives, the knocking to which is open. He saw and heard what he desired to see and heard and hear, and would not take no. We haven't for an answer. The imaginist dreams fall away. He is not the servant of his vision, but the master of the direction of his attention. Imaginative consistency controls perception of events in space-time. Unfortunately, most men are. And from Percy Shelley to the moon says, ever-changing like a joyless eye that finds no object worth its consistency. Mrs. GR too had imaginatively heard what she wanted to physically hear and knew the outer world must confirm it. This was her story. Some time ago, we advertised our home for sale, which was necessary for us to buy. Bear with me. To buy a large, still bear with me, folks. A larger property on which we had placed a deposit. Several people would have bought our home immediately, but we were obliged to explain that we could not close any deal until we learned whether or not our offer for the property we wanted had been accepted. And at this time, a broker called and literally begged us to allow him to show our home to a client of his who was eager for this location and would be glad to pay even more than we were asking. We explained our situation to the broker and to his client. They both stated they did not mind waiting for our deal to be consummated. The broker asked us to sign a paper which he said was not binding in any way, but would give him first chance at the sale if our other deal went through. We signed the paper and later learned that in California real estate law, nothing could have been more binding. A few days later, our deal for the new property fell through, so we notified this broker, and his verbal response was, "Well, just forget it." 2 weeks later, he filed suit against us for $1,500 commission. Trial date was set, and we asked for a jury trial. Our attorney assured us he would do all he could, but that the law on this particular point was so stringent that he could not see any possibility of our winning the case. And when time for the trial arrived, my husband was in the hospital and could not appear with me in our defense. I had no witnesses, but the broker brought 3 attorneys and a number of witnesses into court against us. Our attorney now told me we had not the slightest chance to win. I turned to my imagination, and this is what I did. Completely disregarding all that had been said by attorneys, witnesses, and the judge who seemed to favor the plaintiff, I thought only of the words I wanted to hear. In my imagination, I listened intently and heard the foreman of the jury say, "We find the defendant not guilty." I listened until I knew it was true. I closed my mind's ear to everything said in that courtroom and heard only those words. We find the defendant not guilty. The jury deliberated from noon recess until 4:30 that afternoon, and all during those hours, I sat in the courtroom and heard those words over and over in my imagination. When the juror returned, the judge asked the foreman to stand and give their verdict. The foreman stood up and said, "We find the defendant not guilty, Mrs. GR. If there were dreams to sell, what would you buy?" And that's from Thomas Lavelle Beatles. Dream peddlery. Would you not buy your wish fulfilled? Your dreams are without price and without money. By locking up the jury in her imagination and hearing only what she wanted to hear, she called the jury to anonymity on her behalf, imagining being the reality of all that exists. With it, the lady achieved her wish fulfilled. Hebel's statement that the poet creates from contemplation is true of imaginists as well. They know how to utilize their video audio hallucinations to create reality. Nothing is so fatal as conformity. We must not allow ourselves to be girt about by the ring fixity of facts. Change the image and thereby change the fact. R.O. employed the art of seeing and feeling to create her vision and imagination. A year ago, I took my children to Europe, leaving my furnished apartment in the care of my maid. When we returned a few months later to the United States, I found my maid and all my furniture gone. The apartment superintendent stated that the maid had my furniture moved by my request. There was nothing I could do at the moment, so I took my children and moved into a hotel. Of course, I reported the incident to the police and also brought in private detectives on the case. Both organizations investigated every moving company and every storage warehouse in New York City, but to no avail. There seemed to be absolutely no trace of my furniture, nor of my maid. Having exhausted all outside sources, I remembered your teachings, and I decided I would try using my imagination in this matter. So while seated in my hotel room, I closed my eyes and imagined myself in my own apartment, sitting in my favorite chair and surrounded by all of my personal furnishings. I looked across the living room at the piano on which I kept pictures of my children. I would continue to stare at my piano until the entire room became vividly real to me. I could see my children's pictures and actually feel the upholstery of the chair in which, in my imagination, I sat. The next day, as I came out of my bank, I turned to walk in the direction of my vacant apartment instead of toward my hotel. When I reached the corner, I discovered my mistake and was just about to turn back when my attention was drawn to a familiar pair of ankles. Yes, the ankles belonged to my maid. I walked up to her and took hold of her arm. She was quite frightened, but I assured her all I wanted from her was my furniture. I called a taxi and she took me to the place in which her friends had stored my furnishings. In one day, my imagination had found what an entire big city police force and private investigators could not find in weeks. R.O. This lady knew of the secret of imagining before she called in the police, but imagining, in spite of its importance, was forgotten owing to attention being fixed on facts. However, what reasons failed to find by force, imagining found without effort. Nothing really goes on, including the sense of loss, without its imaginal support. And by imagining that she was seated in her own chair, in her own living room, surrounded by all her own furnishings, she withdrew the imaginal support she had given to her sense of loss. And by this imaginal change, she recovered her lost furniture and reestablished her home. Your imagination is most creative when you imagine things as you desire them to be, building a new experience out of a dream fancy. To build such a dream of fancy in her imagination, F.G. brought to play all of her senses: sight, sound, touch, smell, even taste. This is her story. Since childhood, I've dreamed of visiting faraway places. The West Indies particularly fired my fancy, and I would revel in the feeling of actually being there. Dreams are wonderful, inexpensive, and as an adult, I'll continue to dream my dreams, for I had no money or time to make them come true. Last year, I was taken to the hospital in need of surgery. I had heard your teachings and while recuperating, had decided to intensify my favorite daydream while I had time on my hands. I actually wrote to the Alcoa steamship line asking for free travel folders and pored over them hour after hour, choosing the ship and the stateroom and the 7 ports I desired most to see. I would close my eyes and in my imagination would walk up the gangplank of that ship and feel the movement of water as the great liner pushed its way into
Something went
freedom.
wrong. Please try again.
Uh, it's Siri. But anyway, I would close my eyes and in my imagination would walk up to the gangplank of that ship and feel the movement of water as the great liner pushed its way into free ocean. I heard the thud of the waves breaking against the sides of the ship, felt the steaming warmth of a tropical sun on my face, and smelled and tasted salt in the air as we all sailed through blue waters. For 1 solid week, confined to a hospital bed, I lived the free and happy experience of actually being on that ship. Then one day before my release from the hospital, I tucked the colored folders away and forgot them. 2 months later, I received a telegram from an advertising agency telling me I had won a contest. I remembered having deposited a contest coupon some months before in a neighborhood supermarket, but had completely forgotten the act. I had won first prize, and wonder of wonders, it entitled me to a Caribbean cruise sponsored by the Alcoa steamship line. But the wonder didn't stop there. The very stateroom I had imagined to lived in moved about, and while confined to a hospital bed, had been assigned to me. And to make an unbelievable story even more unbelievable, I sailed on the one ship I had chosen, which stopped in not one, but all of the 7 ports I had desired to visit. FG. Chapter 7, Moods. Sir Winston Churchill says, this is an age in which the mood decides the fortunes of people rather than the fortunes decide the moods. Men regards their moods far too much as effects and not sufficiently as causes. Moods are imaginal activities without which creation is possible, which no creation is possible. We say that we're happy because we have achieved our goal. We do not realize that the process works equally well in the reverse direction, that we shall achieve our goal because we have assumed the happy feeling of the wish fulfilled. Moods are not only the result of the conditions of our life, they are also the causes of those conditions. In the psychology of emotions, Professor Reibert writes, an idea which is only an idea produces nothing and does nothing. It only acts if it is felt and if it is accompanied by an affective state, if it awakens tendencies, that is to say, motor elements. The lady in the following story so successfully felt the feeling of her wish fulfilled, she made her mood the character of the night frozen in a delightful dream. Most of us read and love fairy stories, but we all know that stories of improbable riches and good fortunes are for the delight of the very young. But are they? I want to tell you of something unbelievably wonderful that happened to me through the power of my imagination. And I'm not young in years. We live in an age which believes in neither fable nor magic, and yet everything I could possibly want in my wildest daydreams was given to me by the simple use of what you teach. That imagining creates reality, and that feeling is the secret of imagining. At the time this wonderful thing happened to me, I was out of a job and had no family to fall back upon for support. I needed just about everything. To find a decent job, I needed a car to look for it. And though I had a car, it was so worn out, it was already ready to fall apart. I was behind in my rent. I had no proper clothes to seek a job. And today it's no fun for a woman of 55 to apply for a job of any kind. My bank account was almost depleted, and there was no friend to whom I could turn. But I had been attending your lectures for almost a year, and my desperation forced me to put my imagination to the test. Indeed, I had nothing to lose. It was natural for me, I suppose, to begin by imagining myself having everything I needed. But I needed so many things in such short order that I found myself exhausted when I finally got through the list. And by the time I was so nervous, I could not sleep. One lecture night, I heard you tell of an artist who captured the feeling or word, as you call it, of "isn't it wonderful" in his personal experience. I began to apply this idea to my case. Instead of thinking of and imagining every article I needed, I tried to capture the feeling that something wonderful was happening to me. Not tomorrow, not next week, but right now. I would say over and over to myself as I fell asleep, "Isn't it wonderful? Sometimes marvelous is happening to me. Something marvelous is happening to me now." And as I fell asleep, I would feel the way I would expect to feel under such circumstance. I repeated that imaginary action and feeling for 2 months, night after night. And one day in early October, I met a casual friend I hadn't seen for months who had informed me he was about to leave on a trip to New York. I had lived in New York for many years, and we talked of the city a few moments and then parted. I completely forgot the incident. 1 month later, to the day, this man called at my apartment and simply handed me a certified check in my name for $2,500. After I got over the initial shock of seeing my name on a check for so much money, the story that unfolded seems to me like a dream. It concerned a friend I had not seen nor heard from in more than 25 years. This friend of my past, I now learned, had become extremely wealthy in those 25 years. Our mutual acquaintance, who had brought the check to me and had met him quite by accident during the trip to New York last month, and during their conversation, they spoke of me. And for reasons I was not to know, for to this day, I have not heard from him personally and have never attempted to contact him. This old friend decided to share a portion of his great wealth with me. For the next 2 years, from the office of his attorney, I received monthly checks so generous in amount they not only covered every necessary requirement of daily living, but left much over for all the lovely things of life: a car, clothes, a spacious apartment, and best of all, no need to earn my daily bread. This past month, I received a letter and some legal papers to be signed, which provided the continuation of this monthly income for the rest of my natural life. TK. William Blake says if the fool would persist in his folly, he would become wise. Sir Winston Churchill calls on us to act on the assumption that we already possess that which we sought, to assume a virtue. If we have it not, William Shakespeare's Hamlet said, this is not the secret of miracles. Thus the man with palsy was told to rise, to take up his bed and walk, to mentally act as if he were healed, from Matthew 9, 1:8, Mark 2, 1:13, and Luke 5:18 to 25, and John 5 to 1:17. And when the actions of his imagination corresponded with the actions which he would physically perform, were he healed, he was healed. This is a story about which some may say it would have happened anyway, but those who read it carefully will find room to wonder. It begins 1 year ago as I left Los Angeles to visit my daughter in San Francisco. Instead of the happy-natured individual she had always been, I found her in deep distress. Not knowing the cause of her anguish and not wishing to ask, I waited until she told me that she was in great financial trouble and must have $3,000 immediately. I am not a poor woman, but I didn't have that much cash that I could put my hands on that quickly. And knowing my daughter, I knew she would not have accepted it anyway. I offered to borrow the money for her, but she refused and instead asked me to help her in my way. She meant using my imagination, for I had often told her of your teachings, and some of my words must have struck home. I immediately agreed on this plan with the provision that she would help me help her. We decided on an imaginal scene we could both practice that involved seeing money coming to her from everywhere. We felt money was flooding towards her from every corner. until she was in the middle of a sea of money. But we did this always with a feeling of joy for anyone concerned, and we had no thought of means, only happiness for all. The idea seemed to catch fire with her, and I knew she was responsible for what happened a few days later. She was certainly transformed back to the happy, confident mode that was natural to her. Though there was no evidence of any real money coming in at the time, I left to return home in the East. When I arrived home, I called my mother, a lovely young lady of 91, who immediately asked me to come and see her. I wanted a day's rest, but she couldn't wait. It had to be now. Of course, I went, and after greeting me, she handed me a check for $3,000 made out to my daughter. Before I could speak, she handed me 3 additional checks totaling $1,500 made in favor of my daughter's children. Her reason? She explained that she had suddenly decided the day before to give what she had in cash to those she loved while she was still here, to know of their happiness in receiving it. It would have happened anyway. No, not like this. Not within days of my daughter's frantic need, and then her sudden transformation to a mood of joy. I know that her imaginal act caused this wonderful change, bringing not only great joy to the receiver, but to the giver as well. P.S. I almost forgot to add that among the checks so lavishly given was one for me too, for $3,000 MB. The boundless opportunities opened by recognizing the shift of the focus of imagining are beyond measure. There are no boundaries. The drama of life is an imaginal activity in which we bring to pass by our moods rather than by our physical acts. Moods so ably guide all towards that which they affirm. They may be said to create the circumstances of life and dictate the events. The mood of the wish fulfilled is the high tide which lifts us easily off the bar of the senses where we usually lie stranded. If we are aware of the mood and know this secret of imagining, we may announce that all that our mood affirms will come to pass. The following story is by a mother who succeeded in sustaining a seemingly playful mood with startling results. Surely you've heard the old wives' tale about warts, that if a wart is bought, it will disappear. I've known this story from childhood, but not until I heard your lectures did I realize the truth hidden in the old tale. My boy, a lad of 10, had many large, ugly warts on his legs, causing an irritation which had plagued him for years. I decided that my sudden insight could be used to his advantage. A boy has a lot of faith in his mother as a rule, so I asked him if he would like to be rid of his warts. He quickly said yes, but he did not want to go to a doctor. I asked him to play a little game with me, that I would pay him a sum of money for each wart. This suited him fine, he said. He didn't see how he could lose. We arrived at a fair price, he thought, and then I said, now I'm paying you good money for those warts. They no longer belong to you. You never kept property belonging to someone else, so you can no longer keep those warts. They will disappear. It may take a day or two or a month, but remember that I bought them and they belong to me. My son was delighted with our game. The results sound like something read in an old musty books on magic, but believe me, within 10 days, the warts began to fade. And at the end of 1 month, every wart on his body had completely disappeared. There's a sequel to this story, for I've bought warts from many people. They too thought it great fun and accepted my 5, 7, or 10 cents a wart. In each case, the wart disappeared, but really only one person believes me when I tell him his imagination alone took away the warts. That one person is my young son, JR. Man imagining himself into a mood takes on himself the results of the mood. If he does not imagine himself into the mood, he is ever free of the results. The great Irish mystic A.E. George William Russell wrote in The Candle of Vision, I became aware of a swift echo or response to my own moods in circumstances which had seemed heretofore immutable in its indifference. I could prophesy from the uprising of new moods in myself that I, without search, would soon meet people of a certain character. So I met them. Even inanimate things were under the sway of these affinities. But man need not wait for the uprising of new moods in himself. He can create moods at will. All right, I think that's it for this evening. Next week, we'll start on chapter 8, Through the Looking Glass. I know this is very exciting.
Well,
Very exciting. Thank you, Larry.
You're so welcome.
very exciting, Larry. The power of imagination, I cannot stress its importance. And so many people are moving through so much right now.
Yeah, they sure are.
When we learn the power of our imagination and how we can move through things and shift the world, um, this is going to be transformative for all of us. So what I'd like to do is I thought I would share the beginning of the year. The way we started the year off was we started off lightly and lightheartedly. We put together, we held a play shop, and it was a vision board play shop. And I'm going to show you this play shop, what happened for myself at the play shop. I hope you can see this board. Here we are.
What is it, a vision board?
This is my vision board, and you probably cannot see it, and I'm not in a position where I can my office is a mess. We're in the process of renovating it. But on this vision board we had several things, and one of the things on the vision board had a lot to do with the landscaping of our home. We moved a couple of years ago into the space, and we're now at that point where we're working on the landscape. And we put a lot of energy and time, prayer work, and all of that. And so I want to show you what the power of imagination has done for us in our yard. Here you are. I'm going to make this picture a little bit larger. Let's see if I can make it larger. Just a moment. I want to show you, zoom in. Nope, not zoom in. Let's zoom out now. One moment. Bring it to center. Come back here. One moment. I will open it up. The bottom line is that we've had an opportunity. Here it is, a little bit larger where you can see it. This is our transformation by the power of imagination. The important part is when we learn how to use these tools, we'll be able to demonstrate more and more good. We'll have a better picture for you moving forward. This is a quickie in terms of what is happening, but you can see the process from a barren land. I talked Sunday about laying on the ground and blessing the ground, to that process of where you can see stuff happening. You can see people coming out of the woodworks to create something wonderful. And here is, this is a larger picture. Have that. There's a larger picture here, and that is the finished product. So this is what happens when we use the power of our imagination. It's something that's not used very much. We use it, but we use it in a mindless from a mindless perspective, and our imagination creates more fear for us, more hurt, more pain, as opposed to using it for good. This is what Ernest Holmes meant when he says there is a power for good and we can all use it. So I'm going to invite you to take some time and think about some things that are unfolding in your life and how you can put the practical wisdom of Neville Goddard to work in your life and demonstrate that good. With that in mind, I'm going to invite you to turn in with me as we do our closing prayer. We seal this moment with prayer, just breathing and anchoring, knowing that in the power of now, we have an opportunity to change and transform ourselves. So as we move from this place, I'm affirming the divine action of the infinite, inspired within each and every person that has had this experience right now. I'm acknowledging this power that has ignited itself. It has gone before and prepared the way, that there is clarity, there is wisdom, and there is the inspired effort activated right now within each individual. And I know that their heart's desire is God's desire, and that it clarifies itself. It supports each individual as they move forward with their mind stayed on the presence of the infinite, and that infinite fulfilling itself within each and every person's imagination, whether it is the blessing and the anointing of our body, seeing it perfect, whole, and complete, every single cell, whether it is acknowledging the power and the presence within our finances, and imagining the wisdom and the beauty of spirit showing up in expected and unexpected ways. I know that there is that power. And I acknowledge that same power within all of our relationships, knowing peace and harmony. I know that there is something greater that is at work right now, fulfilling itself for every single person that is involved in this experience in this moment. And I acknowledge it as a perfect blessing. And it is from this place with gratitude that I release these words right now into the action of universal law. And we're all going to affirm. And so it is, and now it is.
What is now it is. Amen.
And so it
Oh,
is.
yes, and now it is. Thank you. So it is, now it is.
I thank you, YouTube audience, for being with us today. It has been a blessing. Facebook, I'm saying the same thing to you. We set it up so that you would still get the message. I invite you all to have a blessed experience. And if you're liking what we're doing, I also invite you to send us a gift, a financial gift, if you received a wonderful blessing. You can send it to seatfm.org. Go to our website. And if you're on the Facebook page, you can donate from that page because we are one of their nonprofits. So have a blessed evening. And if you feel so inclined, find out more about us and join us at 8 o'clock for our Power 8 prayer circle. Thank you. Bye-bye.